Gentlelady, Ms. McSally.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen, for your testimony today. I really appreciate it. I agree, served 26 years in the military, that we live in a more complex and dangerous world than I've seen in my lifetime. So I think we are in agreement, and thanks for the breadth of the testimony. And, you know, as I was in the military, we would see that often the intel and the forces would be focused, usually CENTCOM, PACOM, EUCOM, but I live on the border, and you have some mentions of transnational criminal organizations, the cartels, and the porous borders. And then there's the opportunity, of course, for additional non-state actors to try and use that vulnerability as an access point for us. And again, usually the preponderance of your assets are not focused in that area, but geographically it's the closest to us for a potential threat to the homeland. So I was wondering if you could just comment on your assessment of the threat coming from Latin America and up through the South, and what percentage, and maybe this answer is in the closed session, of your assets, your intel assets, are focused on the threats that might be emanating both from the TCOs and potential other non-state actors to take advantage of those vulnerabilities?
Certainly the number of capability we'd probably have to talk about in closed session. But drug traffickers is still a great focus, especially for the folks down at Southern Command and the folks in Texas. And so we provide support to those efforts. I think they would love to have more capability diverted to that effort. It is, though dangerous to our society, the drugs that are coming in through those narco traffickers, I think it is viewed as somewhat of a lesser threat. I don't know that I agree with that ultimately.
Nor do I, just for the record.
And so we tend not to devote as much resources there. Violence is down in the region. We're concerned a little bit about elections coming up in Venezuela and what that might mean in terms of violence and humanitarian efforts. Colombia has absolutely turned around over the last several years. Plan Colombia has been very effective, so there's less of that threat from the region. We don't see the same level of insurgency that we did just 10 years ago. So the real threat from Latin and Central America is the drug trafficking, narco traffickers, and we are invested a little bit, but probably not nearly as much as we should.
Great, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And again, for those who do live on the southern border and the violence, or the potential for violence with the cartels trafficking literally onto their land and through their property, that is a very real threat for us. But again, the potentiality that someone else would take advantage of that for a larger national security threat is something we're concerned about in southern Arizona. I want to transition to, I was a part of the team standing up U.S. Africa Command and running our counterterrorism operations, and we were very limited on resources all the way around. And so in addition to the resource limitations, we were limited in the process for how, when we would find a bad guy, how we would be able to quickly go sensor to shooter, find, fix, finish. And again, this may be more for the closed door session, but I do want to have a deeper conversation about, with the ungoverned spaces and the rise of terrorist organizations on that continent that pose a threat to us. Again, I saw opportunities we had to take out some of these guys, but we were either limited by resources or by the process, which was too slow and painful, and we would miss opportunities, way too centralized. And we allowed a number of bad guys to continue to go about their business and train additional terrorists as we watch that happen. So I'm deeply concerned about that, and I don't know if you can comment on it, General Mayville, if any of that's changed, and I look forward to talking more in the closed session.
Much of your question, I think, is better discussed at the policy level, and so I'll defer to policymakers to take that question.
Okay, great. But resources-wise, intel-wise, we were very limited there, too.
I can speak quickly to that. It continues to be a challenge. You mentioned two networks in your questions, one that goes east-west from Kabul to Mali, and one that goes north-south in the Western Hemisphere. The demands for resources, the demands for enablers are in those areas. These non-state activities is quite high, and managing them is a challenge.
Great, thank you. My time has expired.
Mr. MacArthur.